It's 7 o'clock, so we're going to get started tonight. So first of all, thank you everyone, and welcome to the Kansas Junior Livestock Show Lead Challenge Listen and Learn sessions. My name is Brittany Grother, and I serve on the Lead Challenge Planning Committee. So thank you for joining us tonight. And before we get started, I just have a couple housekeeping items. So first off, I'm sure most of us are familiar with using Zoom at this point, but I'd like to remind everyone to please remain muted during our presentation tonight. If you'd like to ask a question during the presentation, feel free to put that in the chat down at the bottom of your screen, or afterwards you can come off of mute and ask your questions after we're done. So secondly, please make sure to fill out your participation survey after the Listen and Learn. This is how you get your participation points, and that link is going to be on the Kansas Junior Livestock Show website. Tonight's session is titled How to Market Your Meat Products. We have three great panelists here tonight representing the beef, pork, and lamb industries to share their knowledge and experiences selling meat in Kansas. So we will start off the panel discussion by asking each of our panelists to introduce themselves and their business. And we're going to start with Isaac.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully everybody's nights are going pretty well. My name's Isaac Brunkow. My family owns and operates Brunkow Family Lamb in Wamego, Kansas. We market our lamb products. We raise our own lamb and raise them to a terminal weight of 120 to 140 pounds, and market them through Yoder Lamb, our Yoder Meat Market, and provide all their lamb products, and also do some direct sale off the farm and online, and also through farmers markets now. That's a new option my parents added just recently. It's one I've helped with a few times. It's still new to me. I just moved back from the frozen tundra of North Dakota. But I'm getting more involved in the family operation as we go on, and I'm now closer to home.
All right, I'll turn it over to Jacquelyne.
Hi, I'm Jacquelyne Leffler, and I live in East Central Kansas. Emporia is the biggest town next to me. Americus is my hometown, and I'm the fourth generation of Leffler Farms Incorporated. And so my great-grandparents, my grandparents, my parents, and then myself and my sister have been the ones operating our farm since 1941. We have a typical row crop operation. So we raise corn, soybeans, and wheat. Wheat is absolutely my favorite crop to raise. So I'm getting really excited to start planting that here in a few weeks. And then on the cattle side of things, we actually buy the majority of our cattle at around 500 pounds up in the north part of South Dakota. And then we bring those down to our farm and raise those until they're roughly 900 pounds. And so then we take them to a family operation just down the road, about 20 minutes to Polanski Ranch. And then they feed them out for us until they're good and fat at around 1,450 pounds. And then that's where we either sell them to the packer. Typically we go to Cargill or Tyson. And if we don't sell that way, then I retain those cattle and sell them direct to consumer. And so I'll do anything from selling right off of the farm, maybe setting up a pop-up shop somewhere in a parking lot for people to pick up their orders. I sell to a restaurant in Manhattan, and then I sell to a few different wholesalers here. One of them is kind of unique. It's a garden center. And they actually just have freezers there that has local products. And so those are the different ways that I kind of sell my beef.
Okay, Emily, your turn.
Hey everyone, my name is Emily Roush. My husband Caden couldn't make it on with me tonight, but Caden and I own and operate our family farms. We are a farrow to finish hog operation, so we raise the pigs from birth all the way to finish weight. We have the mom, the mama pigs and the boars as well. So everything happens on our farm. And then from there, we take it to the market, which usually between 280 and 300 pounds. We market in a couple different ways. Most of our hogs these days are going into our own private label meats that they get marketed online via our e-commerce platform and shipped nationwide. We also have a couple of other wholesale accounts that include selling hogs live off on the hoof. So they just go to a butcher and they get sold, and then we get paid for the live animal. And then going back to like our private label, we have a couple of different avenues that we sell through there, which include grocery stores. We have some smaller like gift type avenues, like gift stores that we sell to. As well as we've recently took on a contract for a Kansas food bank. So we kind of dabble in a lot of different avenues to market our pork in that way as well.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, I'm going to start our next question with Jacquelyne, and we'll kind of popcorn around. So how did you get started selling meat? What is one thing you learned right off the bat?
Yeah, so when I came back home to the farm, it wasn't in the plans. So I didn't study agriculture. I actually have a pre-med degree. And so I was coaching collegiately at Emporia State University, and decided that I needed to be home full-time on the farm. And growing up, we had always showed cattle in 4-H, and we always had a couple of extra, that didn't get to go through the premium sale, but we had to do something with them. And my family of 4 couldn't eat all of that meat. And so I would find neighbors and friends that would want to buy our extra 4-H animals that my sister and I had. And so when I became an adult, I thought that was a really good way to make extra money. Why am I still not doing that? And so that's kind of how I started marketing our beef that way. And, really, I did it just for extra income. But once I realized that I could teach people about nutrition and how healthy beef is, since that was more of what my college degree was in, I got really passionate about it really fast. And so that's kind of how I started. What I learned really quickly, one of the first lessons was that everybody in this area kind of made fun of me for doing it. They kind of said I was wasting my time and I was trying to do something that people didn't need. And so I learned really quickly that if I believed in myself and I had a power and a way to do it, that I could make it happen. And so I kind of just figured out everything on my own, and then built a network of friends, and Emily's one of those friends. And, I just collaborate with people and ask questions, and not afraid to ask questions when maybe my source around me here locally didn't think it was possible. So I went outside my box and found people that would help me make it a reality. So I had to learn that really quick.
Thank you, Jacquelyne. How about Emily next? How did you get started, and what's one thing you learned right off the bat?
So we actually got started when we kind of found ourselves in a pickle. We were selling to someone who wasn't necessarily honoring their end of the deal, and we found ourselves with this brand new hog facility that we had, and lots of debt trying to raise pigs at this new hog facility. And we were like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do now, because this person isn't paying us money, and we have to keep chugging along. Raising pigs is what we want to do. So it just kind of rolled into marketing our own pork, and that was a really good way for us to be able to fill that void for the time being that we had. So it was always our long-term goal to get into direct-to-consumer, farm-to-table sort of sales, but not necessarily as quick as we had. It just kind of happened that way out of necessity. So that's how we got started. Raising pigs had been in my husband's family for multiple generations. So we always knew that we wanted to raise hogs when we moved back here after college. But the selling our own meat, just like I said, it just kind of happily happened, I guess. So something that we learned really quick is that it's a lot more difficult than you might think it'll be. There's a lot of time involved. You don't ever have enough space. So it's just, it just going to leave it as there's a lot more hurdles to getting into selling your own meat to people more than just your friends and family than you might think there is associated with that. So
Thank you, Isaac. I'll turn it over to you next.
We got started into selling meat. Originally we actually sold beef is how we got started. We sell custom exempt beef, which means that people pay you as if they own the animal. And you deliver it to the slaughterhouse, and the butcher processes out and turns that whole carcass over to either you to deliver to the customer, or the customer comes and picks it up themselves. We started doing that with beef, and then when I was middle school, we picked up sheep production. We started as just show lambs, and then that has grown rapidly to, I think, 90 something head is last time we counted of production ewes. And that was also custom exempt originally, and we did a lot of that just through word of mouth and advertising on Facebook. And I did a lot of that in undergrad when I worked at the Kansas State Vet School. There's a lot of people that had interest in buying either half or whole lamb carcasses and getting custom cuts. The direct marketing is a lot more recent for my family's operation. We got in partnered with Yoder Meat Market, and that has been a blessing. We really enjoy working with them. They do all of the butchering, processing, and packaging for us on our personal stuff. And then, like I said, they buy lambs from us and sell it through their storefront. And it's been a great partnership, and we look forward to working with them for many years to come. But the online market is another thing that's relatively new. We used to market through Facebook Marketplace and some other avenues, but we've recently started using Barn to Door, and they organize it for us into an online website and help us manage that system, do an online inventory, and then also an online marketplace where we can accept payment through online, and we'll either deliver any within, I think Dad said 75 miles is his radius that he is currently. Or they can come to our family operation and pick it up. And then the farmers market was something we tried this year. We only did Wamego and Manhattan to start with, and that seems like it's worked really well. My parents really enjoyed it. Tatum has gone down, and my little sister's gone down and helped several times. They're starting to get where they have regular customers coming and asking for them, looking for certain cuts and stuff that they've bought from them. And just there's a couple people that when I helped that just wanted to talk to my parents. But those are the current avenues we're going through, and that's how we got started, and we're hoping to grow. And like Jacquelyne said, they sell to a restaurant. We'd like to get to that point someday. We just got to figure out some of the dynamics of working through that.
Thank you, Isaac. Emily, we'll ask you the next question first. So You guys have kind of talked about where you sell your meat. Pick one of your marketing outlets and tell us how you establish that business relationship.
Yeah, so I feel like something that a lot of people probably hope that they can get to is being able to sell in a grocery store. So the good thing about living in rural Kansas is I'm assuming that a lot of you guys out there are probably living in smaller communities and more rural type settings, is that it's really easy to make connections with people because a lot of times you know somebody that knows somebody. So we sell in a couple of different grocery stores, and all of that was just because we're from a small community and we knew the managers and talked to them and realized and sold our product to them, that we thought that having locally produced meats would be a good seller in their store. So really, or any sort of shop store for that matter. You know, I mentioned that we have some products in like gift shops because we do shelf stable like pork snack sticks and summer sausage and jerky and that sort of stuff. So all of it is just trying to make connections. And a lot of time, if you're genuine and you're able to put your best product out there, a lot of your smaller locally owned businesses are more than willing to be able to work with you to get those products into their store.
Right. Isaac, do you want to go next? Pick one of your markets and say how you establish that business relationship.
So the one we use the most currently would be the Yoder meat market, as they're our main distributor, and then also do all of the packaging for us on our custom stuff too. We started that relationship getting to know Chad Bontrager at KDA, and that's how that relationship was developed. We originally were utilizing Manhattan Meat Market. Since then, that store has closed down, and we had some concern of trying to find another processor that we enjoyed as much processing lamb. That's one challenge in the American sheep industry, is there's a lot of processors that don't want to work with lamb. It's a little more time consuming and involved. And after having to process lamb myself in grad school, I understand some of their concern and not wanting to do it, but we're very thankful that we found and partnered through our connection with Chad with Yoder Meat Market, and have been really happy there. Only issue we have is it's a long drive between Yoder and Wamego, but it's well worth it.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Jacquelyne next.
Yeah, so I said I sell to a garden store in Council Grove, Kansas, which is probably one of my favorite places. Everything they have there is local. And it's a really cool town that is just like revitalized itself in Main Street. And it's just 20 minutes from me. And I always kind of wanted to claim it as my hometown and not my town because it's so much cooler. And so it's one of those places that it has like the small town charm. And it seems like every time I walk down Main Street, there's something new and exciting happening. And if I remember right, the owner had just kind of called me, or we had ran into each other, and she just said, "Hey, I'd like to sell your beef." And I said, "That would be fantastic." And we kind of just hit it off. And so it's super fun. Like when I walk in there, I get to see all these other people that have produced vegetables or honey. There's another person that sells pork there. And then they have Neosho Gardens, which kind of supplies their Grove Garden store. And so I think it's like 16 acres worth of covered greenhouses. And so it's just absolutely incredible to see all the different things that they have that are actually like hyper local to our area be showcased and sold there. And people are genuinely excited to go and spend a morning there walking through and picking out stuff. And I really enjoy when I get a deliver there and see people, you know, digging through the meat case and reading the flyer that, has all my information on it and stuff. And so that's probably like my favorite spot. Just because it doesn't just highlight one local person, it's like the whole community it highlights. And I just think that's the coolest thing in a small town.
Thank you. All right, Isaac, I'll start the next question with you. What is one skill you learned in 4-H or FFA that has helped you be successful?
This is a tricky one, but I use this one a lot today. If you can't tell, might be a little tired. It's been a long day at my current job. But improvising and learning to roll with the flow. That's one thing I learned a lot growing up in 4-H, is just being able to take a situation that may have been you can look at it in a real negative light, but figuring out where the bright side is and how to keep going with it. The best example I have with that is one thing that I have learned with the importance of marketing, especially direct marketing your meat products, is the importance of high quality coolers and freezers. My dad and I, 2 summers ago, when it was 114 on the blacktop, we're taking a load of cattle or something. We're getting ready to leave the ranch, is what I remember. And I went in to grab water out of the shop fridge, and one of our freezers was leaking. So we lost an entire top freezer worth of meat, which, when it comes to especially lamb, where it's a little pricier than other species, it really hurts. But you just learn from your mistakes, and we invested in coolers that when they start dropping temperature, they start screaming at you. And that has been one of the best investments that my parents have ever made, and it has saved us a lot of pain and stress.
Great. Thanks, Isaac. I'll turn over to Jacquelyne next. What's one thing you learned in 4-H that's helped you be successful?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that I really learned was just responsibility. That if I did my project in 4-H really well and put in the time and effort, more than likely I was going to be rewarded at the county fair or wherever I was showing my animals. And so, that meant making sure I woke up early, or if I wasn't going to, that I at least had asked my dad to maybe feed that morning, or if I had a conflict. And so learning that really early on, I think, helped me throughout my entire life of knowing the effort that I put in was going to be the result at the end of the day. Now, the hard part of that was, we went and picked steers out of our feedlot. And so we weren't buying like an actual show animal. And so it was really disheartening for me at the beginning to see, the judge give me a red ribbon or a blue ribbon when I knew I put in all this time and effort, and by gosh, I wanted the purple ribbon, or I wanted the cool belt buckle, or whatever the prize was at the end of that show. And I learned really, really quick that for my family and what we were doing on our operation, our showcase wasn't the show ring. Our showcase was the carcass division. And so I had to train my mind that whatever happened in the ring didn't matter as much, because I was striving for the carcass division. And ultimately, that's what our operation is still doing. That's why I sell our beef to consumer. And that's why people get really excited when they see my ribeyes. And so it was a really hard mind shift to sometimes be okay and understand that a judge isn't going to see my animal when it's live like I'm going to see it when it's hanging. And so it was really hard for me to see that, because I didn't win, when everybody got to see it. But at the end of the day, I was always really satisfied because we fed our animals really well and got the results we wanted at the end. And so I would say, like, being able to have those realistic goal sets of knowing these are the animals that we're bringing in, and this is the end result that I'm wanting, even though it may not be the same end result that everybody else is wanting, you know, in the show ring or whatnot. And so that was a really important lesson that I learned really quickly. And I was really, really grateful my dad and even our beef leaders like took the time to explain these things to me. And so that's, I think, also why I'm really passionate about how we feed our animals and how we really strive for a certain type of marbling and different genetics and stuff. So that's kind of what I learned: responsibility and figuring out exactly what my exact goals were so that I wasn't disappointed even when I achieved my goals.
Thank you, Jacquelyne. Emily, what's one thing you learned in 4-H or FFA?
So I was really thinking about this, and public speaking and communications is really something that I am going to hang my hat on with that. It's really hard to be able to talk to people and market your product and be a knowledgeable source for selling your product if you don't know how to communicate well, if you don't know how to speak in front of people, whether it be a small group of a handful of folks that came to your farm to see how you raise your animals, or at a farmer's market, or even trying to market your product to the local grocery store or gift shop owner or whatever it might be. So being able to be confident in your speaking abilities and being able to speak in front of people when you are trying to sell something, whether it be your own product or, you know, crop seed or whatever it might be, being confident in your public speaking abilities and being able to communicate effectively is a very important tool to be able to have, and that's something that 4-H and FFA helped grow in me. So
Great. All right. For our last question, I'm going to start with Jacquelyne. What is one piece of advice you'd share with someone looking to sell their meat from their livestock project?
That's a tough one. I think Emily kind of hit on it earlier that it sounds like it should be like a really easy endeavor. Like you go and take your animal to the butcher and then people just magically come and buy it. And there's so much more to the process than that. You have, advertising, building a clientele, trying to find people that you can wholesale to. With beef, a lot of the times, everybody wants steaks. So then you have a bunch of hamburger left over. So then you have to find someone to buy a bunch of excess hamburger. Or then you find the person to buy a bunch of hamburger and now you have too many steaks. And so it's this giant puzzle that you don't have a picture to that you're constantly trying to put together. And I don't know that I'll ever have all the pieces together, let alone in the right spot, because that picture is always evolving and looking different, it seems like, at the beginning of each week. And so I guess to kind of help me with that is just networking. The more people I get to know, the more people that know that I sell beef and see my Facebook page and see different things, then that's the more people that can talk about me and talk about my beef. And so that's kind of the two things that I really try to do the most. But they're not the easiest things, but they're the two that you got to do the most.
Thank you. All right, Emily, what's one piece of advice that you would share?
Probably just to always be on your toes, and it's kind of that way in agriculture in general, but it goes back to what I mentioned earlier, is that it's a lot more difficult than you think it might be. So you just always have to be thinking about the next thing. It kind of ties back into what Jacquelyne was saying. There's always a new piece of the puzzle, and you just always have to constantly be thinking. You can't ever get too complacent with yourself. You can't always, or you can't just be okay with where you're at, because something's going to change. So I guess my piece of advice would just be, always make sure that you're paying attention to what's going on with your markets. Always check in on how they're doing, how they think your product's doing, and just being aware constantly of all of the different puzzle pieces that go into marketing your product, and the different businesses and wholesale outlets and everything. It's just be knowledgeable of what's going on, so that when something does happen, when that one puzzle piece just doesn't quite fit, you can start thinking about what that new puzzle piece needs to be to complete your picture, to get rid of all of that extra ground product that you can't sell very easily. Or, if you lose a retailer, finding that next one to kind of fit that space for all of that pork that you're not going to be able to get rid of.
Thank you. Okay, Isaac, we'll finish up with you. What's your piece of advice?
Take pride in your project. Take pride in what you're raising. One thing, especially dealing with lamb as much as I do, I see a lot of people that raise lamb that don't always know what to do with their own lamb meat. Take pride in it, know how to cook it, learn it, live it, love it. My coworker teased me the other day because she said it seems like I eat 3 pounds of lamb a week, and there's some truth to that. I do eat a lot of our own product, and I hand out recipes like they're free candy. I have no problem teaching people how to cook lamb, because it's more challenging than other stuff to cook. You gotta know how to season it right, and you gotta know what to look for. And that's just one thing that I've learned that people really do appreciate, is the authenticity of enjoying your own what you're raising. It doesn't instill a lot of trust from your consumers if you're eating it yourself.
Thank you. And yeah, you'll have to hit up Isaac if you need some lamb recipes, because his mom brings them into work and it always smells really good when she's heating up her lunch at lunchtime. All right, so now we're finished with our scripted questions. So if anyone listening tonight has some questions for our speakers, feel free to either come off mute or you can send a message in the chat. Either one works. I know I had a private message earlier asking what wholesale means. Would any of our presenters like to explain what wholesale is?
So wholesale means that you're buying that whole animal, or in the context of meat, I think the way we're referring to it is you're buying that whole animal as an intact carcass for further breakdown later down the road.
Wholesale on my end mostly means that I am selling it to another business who is then going to sell it. So if I'm talking about wholesale on my end, I'm selling somebody 200 pounds of ground sausage, and then they are going to remarket it themselves. So I market direct to my clients via my website or farmers market or face to face, or I also have businesses that sell it for me, and that's where in my business where my wholesale comes in, is I'm selling it to those businesses who are then selling it for me.
Right. Do we have any other questions? Oh, we have one in the chat from Emma. She asked, what happens when you run out of meat to sell?
Means you had a really good year. That doesn't usually happen for us. But what I would tell you is that just means you're gonna have good clientele and good return rate for next year. So one thing I would uh, use as a tool is I'd plan ahead and plan on having a couple more lambs to go into the freezer.
Yeah, so if I ever run out of like a certain cut, or I don't ever just like always run out of meat, like everything at once. It just doesn't happen that way with the volume that I do. But let's say I'm out of ribeyes and somebody wants ribeyes, then I just make a spreadsheet and I write their contact information, and I just know as soon as I'm restocked the next month, because I butcher every month, then I call that person and give them first dibs. And so sometimes I might give them like $1 off as like an inconvenience fee, or whatever the case might be. But typically, with the volume I'm doing now, I don't really run out. But when I do, I just make a list and then I call those people or text them and let them know I'm fully stocked again and come on out and we'll fulfill their order. So that's pretty how I handle it.
All right, we've got some more in the chat. So the Frick family was asking the difference between a state license and a USDA licensed facility. So maybe if you guys could say if you slaughter from a state inspected plant or a USDA inspected plant, I can kind of talk about the difference. I work for the Kansas Department of Agriculture, which is the regulatory agency that is doing the state inspection for our plants. So a state inspected meat locker can sell that meat within the state border. A USDA inspected or licensed plant you can sell that meat in the state, or you can sell it across state lines. So it kind of either limits or expands your marketing opportunities there, whether you are getting your meat slaughtered in a state inspected plant or a USDA inspected plant. And state is done by the Kansas Department of Agriculture, and then federally it's done by the United States Department of Agriculture. But both entities have inspectors in the state who live here and do those inspections for those plants.
So since I ship my meat nationwide, I am using a USDA inspected plant so that I am able to move my meat across state lines.
I currently butcher at a state inspected facility. They just got state inspected within the last 2 months. So they were custom prior to that. And so all of my quarter halves and wholes was done through them. And then I had to go somewhere else that was state inspected to do my retail. So the meat that I sold to restaurants or wholesalers. But now that locker plant is now state inspected, so I do 100% of my business through them, and I don't sell outside of state lines, so I don't have to go to a USDA inspected plant.
Our lamb is all state inspected. Our goal is to hopefully get federal inspection someday. We've had some interest from groups in Kansas City wanting to provide our lamb locally in restaurants, but that is across the state line in Missouri. So that's one hurdle we have to leap before we can get to that point.
Right. I think, Isaac, the next question might be a reference to one of your examples you had. When the meat defrosts in the freezer, what do you do with the meat? Do you just throw it away?
Yes, as my father referred to it, it was used to feed the coyotes. We had to dispose of all that, and that's why that really hurt. It was, luckily it wasn't a big freezer, it was just a top freezer and a fridge, but it was still good quality meat until it defrosted, and legally you have to dispose of it once it reaches that point if you're intending to sell it.
All right, Macy, I'm going to read your question, but you might elaborate if you can. If you sold out of meat, how much would that average to? Are you asking like a dollar value or quantity? Feel free to unmute yourself if you would like. If not, we can take a stab at it. That's okay too. You can maybe type more in the chat and we can move on to Lacey's question. So Lacey is asking, is social media the largest marketing platform for producers? What media form do you feel generates the best customer turnout?
I'll go first. I really think that it depends on who your market is, and where you're marketing at. So with my e-commerce online sales that we ship our pork out with, I have a list of email subscribers that tops over 3,000 people, and that's my best way uh, to market. It's the most proven effective way for me to get sales is to create email marketing content. So generating that email list has been huge on my e-commerce platform to be able to sell product, because in my experience, Facebook, Instagram, social media in general, some of those platforms aren't as friendly to animal agriculture these days and selling meat. And my pages do not get as good of traction as they used to 5 or 7 years ago. So, like I said, I think it really depends on who you're marketing to. And in my case, it's online marketing via email.
Facebook works the best for us. We've tried newsletter, and my sister's a little more creative and better at technology than the rest of the family, so she's figuring that part out. But currently, Facebook works the best, and my parents keep a fairly active Facebook page. That's not quite my forte. Luckily, my sister and dad are very good at talking and like that side of stuff, so they keep it nice and lively on there for us.
Alrighty, so following up on Macy's question, she said money. So if you sold out of meat, how much money would that average to? I'm guessing what you would lose out on maybe if you didn't have meat that week to sell. Anyone want to take a stab at that one?
That's a tough question. I guess a better answer maybe would be I keep around $10,000 worth of meat in my inventory at all times. So I guess if I were to sell out of that, you know, and I didn't have that there as a replacement, you know, that's kind of that's the only way I know how to answer that question, is that's about the amount of beef inventory that I keep on hand at all times. But if at any time that I run out, I don't look at it as losing money. I'm just having to wait longer to get it, which makes me want to schedule better, and make sure I have a really good feel on my customer base of reaching out like, hey, when do you think you're going to need meat again? I have some pretty consistent buyers, so that kind of helps me plan in advance. But you don't really look at it as losing out on money, because if you have a pretty faithful clientele base, they'll be sitting there waiting for you if you have a good product.
Thank you, Jacquelyne. So we have one question that says, which animal makes the most profit selling? So Isaac, you guys said you sell beef and lamb. Do you want to answer that one?
And Jacquelyne can probably back me up on this. Per animal beef sells way as more, you make more off an individual beef carcass than you do lamb or pork. There's just more to it and a lot more meat to sell, and there is a really good customer base for it. Lamb, it's a lot smaller. Prices are higher, but not high enough that they can quite compete with the beef carcass.
There's just a lot that goes into that question, because you're talking about the different ways that people raise animals, and if you have niche markets. So, Jacquelyne's beef will be priced differently than somebody that markets theirs maybe as, completely grass fed, or, some other marketing labels there. And it really would all just go back to pound per pound on rate of gain and how much you put into that animal and how you had it cut out. It's just, that is a super difficult question because there's so many variables. Yes, beef, you get a lot more money out of it, but it's also 5 or 6 times the size of a hog. But it also takes 3-4 times as long to finish out. So, same with lamb would be the same way. Lamb has a much shorter time to finish out. So there's just I would say, without somebody going through and doing all of the actual math on it, there are just so many variables to that question. I personally think that if you have an animal that you love and that's the one that you want to raise and make a profit off of, then go for it. But just make sure that you know your numbers.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, we're going to take Emma's question last because we are at 7:45 tonight. So if you're just starting out, what is the best way you guys would recommend advertising their business?
Friends and family are a really good way to get started. And especially when you're younger, you're not necessarily your personal friends, but maybe your friends' family, their family, and just making the connections. If you do have a social media account, letting people know that way. Your parents can help out. It's just really, Jacquelyne's commented on this a couple of different times, but it's really networking. And it doesn't matter what level that it's on, whether it's your aunt and your uncle, or, if it's your neighbor that lives 5 miles down the road. Just getting the word out that you are doing this project is really the best way to advertise your business to begin with, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think too, you're never too young to have a business card. You're going to run into people everywhere you ever go. And there is nothing that's more impressive when a young person, and I say that still as a young person, that pulls out a business card and has my phone number, my email, and my Facebook page on it so they can go and look me up later. So to me, absolutely figure out how to get a business card. Vistaprint.com is super affordable. And it's really easy to make a fun design, and they're really high quality. That's my number one piece of advice to people starting out is get a business card, regardless of what your passion is and what you're trying to do. It shows that you care and you're trying to do something. And so that's kind of my big thing. And two, when you're just starting out, you don't always have money to advertise. And I get hit up all the time for donations. And yeah, I have a really large size beef business, but I can't just afford to give my beef away for every fundraiser. And so I always tell people, hey, I can't give you my product or I can't give you gift certificates, but can I give you my time and wear my logo while I'm there? And so that's one thing that I know everybody is so short on time, but if it saves you money and it allows you to advertise, that's what I've done the most in our community is I just try to show up. People know my face, they know my family, and ultimately they know our brand. And so just show up and be involved in your community and people will want to support you.
Right. Thank you so much tonight to our panelists. We have appreciated your insight and your time answering our questions. And I know that people who will watch the recording version, maybe if they have questions, they can follow up with you guys directly. So as we round out tonight, I just want to thank everyone who participated live this evening. We had a great group of people asking questions for our panelists, which I know they appreciate your engagement. Please remember to fill out the participation survey after this meeting tonight. Trace, my coworker, put that link in the chat. So that's how you get your participation points. It's just one question, super easy, one thing you learned tonight. So make sure to fill that out to get your points. And also don't forget to sign up for your speech and career development interview time slots on the Kansas Junior Livestock Show website. These really help us out with scheduling on our end too. And don't forget to join us tomorrow night for our last Listen and Learn session titled Kansas's Largest Economic Sector, Agriculture. So thank you everyone and have a good rest of your night.